And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted a powerful and flexible way to create views bulk operations without writing code? There's a module for that. It's called ECA VBO, and it was created in May of 2022 by MXH, a prolific maintainer in his own right, and an active member of the group that has made the ECA ecosystem so far reaching. It has 1.1.1 and 2.1.1 versions available, the latter of which supports Drupal 10.3 and 11. It is actively maintained and has security coverage. And as for documentation, it sort of has it. There's a pretty extensive README with good step by step instructions, and the project page has links to both an example model and a tutorial video. It has 7 open issues, one of which is a bug against the current branch, which is pretty good considering it's in use by 320 sites according to Drupal.org. Now, with the module installed, your site will have a number of events within ECA specifically for defining models that can perform bulk actions on the selected items in a view. In my own experience, the most useful event is VBO execute views bulk operation one by one. From there, you can define the logic of what needs to happen to these selected items. I've used it for fairly simple operations like changing content to a specific moderation state, but you could define complex logic that is conditional on field values, site configuration, or even global factors like time of day. With one or more models defined, you can now add a field to your view for ECA bulk operations and then select which eligible models you want available in that specific view. It's worth adding that the ECA model can also include logic to define who should have access to perform a particular operation, which could be as simple as checking the role of the current user, but can be as complex as you need. I came across ECA VBO during some recent work on the Drupal event platform, which is already available to try out on Drupal Forge, but there should be a more formal announcement on that front soon. So let's talk about ECA VBO.
I have some questions. So I imagine that when you create a new model using this, it adds the operation as an option on the drop down, right? In whatever view you add it to.
So there's within views, there's a special field that you add that's like
Yep.
ECA VBO, and it adds it to that. It shows up as an option there.
Okay. And it merges it in with the normal VBO options that are available from the VBO module, or is it a separate drop down?
I think it's a separate selection of actions. So I'm
Oh,
not sure you can mix and match them, unfortunately.
that's too bad, but not a huge deal. I feel like VBO used to be like I did use it on every site, but I used it on a lot of sites. And I feel like this module might be a way to kind of bring that back. I think the piece that I have to get over, and this is definitely um, something I think I've seen in the community beyond myself, but I've definitely moved away from the let me use a module first, and this kind of thing I've just written code for. And so it feels like a heavy lift to add ECA for one specific thing that you need. But if you start using ECA as the way to manage this type of logic, and you start using it for all those little things that you write custom code for, I think it can start replacing that. If it can, Drupal can get back to the basics.
Oh, I was just going to say the other thing to think about too is ECA potentially also makes migrating between major versions of Drupal easier because if you can use it to replace some of those smaller, lesser maintained modules, then that can mean fewer things that you need to sort of wait to have those updated before you can move up to like Drupal 12 next year.
Yeah,
Good point.
I also would think, like, if you are building something where you have a lot of, like, maybe integrations or, like, you need to move, a node from one state to another, and then based on that change, you need to go out and do something and then report back and all this other stuff. Like, I imagine this could be super useful in that regard where it's like, "Okay, select these 3 nodes." Like, I almost imagine, like, I'm going to use this example, even though there are already like plenty of modules that do this. But like if you were translating content, right? And like for some whatever reason Drupal you were using some maybe proprietary translation service or something. Like I imagine this could help you with like, hey, send these 3 nodes to the translation service. Once you hear back from the translation service, update the status of the like I imagine that could be like a lower barrier to entry to get your, a better integration, a better user experience than like custom coding something that you'd have to then maintain and update. And those business rules are pretty easily updated, I would say, through ECA. So I definitely see this as being super useful for like admins or folks that are kind of using Drupal in more of like a I don't know management capacity.
And I think with the recipes coming around, all the like manual site building pieces of bulk operations is going to get easier for folks. So
Yeah. I definitely agree that like maybe even the building of ECA models will be easier, right? Because you could install a recipe that kind of had that config already there for you. So like, if there was something that was more of a common task, you could recipeify it. I don't know if that's actually a term, but it should be. And then like people could just kind of use that to enable that feature functionality. So definitely see definitely see a lot of interesting use cases for this.
Well, and I know there's also a lot of talk right now between sort of the ECA community within Drupal as well as the AI community, and the pairing of those two, I think, is also incredibly powerful in a variety of ways, including potentially the ability to have AI maybe do the first pass on your model for you after you sort of use normal language to describe the business logic of what you're trying to achieve.
That would be absolutely a game changer because my biggest problem with ECA right now is the fact that when I go in there to try to create a model, I'm like basically hunting and pecking for like what that model needs to look like and do. I'm like, here's the idea. Okay, now how do I translate that into like ECA parlance? So yes, that piece of it would be awesome. And I mean like VBO is super useful. It's like one of those modules. Every time I use it, I'm kind of like, why is this not in core again? Like, why? Like, what?
when you need
Well,
to use it, like you need to use it because
yeah. I mean, I guess that's
yeah.
true. If you're not in views all the time and doing things with multiple nodes, then maybe it's not as useful. But I mean, I think even like on the content view, right? There are a lot of things VBO
Mhm.
adds there that are helpful. So, um, anyway,
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that VBO does it probably isn't super, it probably doesn't change a super lot anymore, but it does need to respond to contrib a lot faster than core can, right? If there's a new module or data type or action, something like that, VBO will need to update, and if it was part of core, that would take a lot longer than I think you'd want for something like this. So I think this kind of utility, like, I can see both sides, but I think it makes sense in contrib.
yeah. All right, I like it.
Well well, thank you, Martin, for another great module of the week. If folks wanted to connect with you to suggest the module of the week or just chat, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Always to chat. I was happy to chat about interesting modules in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as Manclue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.
Thanks, Martin. See you next week.
See you then.